Okay, let's stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh. So we will get our agenda going with our swearing in of Ms. Shay Davis.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible.
I'm not gonna make a great picture with the food in front of me. Go ahead.
Well, how do you want us to?
No, go ahead.
I'm a little twisted up here
I'm
anyway.
just-
State after me. I state your name.
I, Shay Davis,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are or may be
and
established
authorities which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Shay Davis,
Do further solemnly swear
do further solemnly swear
that I will execute the office of council member for the town of Mills River,
that I will execute the office of council member for the town of Mills River,
North Carolina, without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
North Carolina, without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, could she like turn her?
Yeah, let's say it's
Just
a little
relax.
awkward.
Okay, gotcha. You can't put it aside. It doesn't awkward. Yeah. it's not awkward.
Oh, next up, we got our swearing in of our Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Jeff Young.
Raise right hand, left hand on the Bible. I state your name.
I, Jeff Young,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Jeff Young,
Do further solemnly swear
do further solemnly swear
that I will execute the office of Mayor Pro Tem
that I will execute the office of Mayor Pro Tem
for the town of Mills River, North Carolina,
for the town of Mills River, North Carolina,
without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
without prejudice, favor, affection, or partiality,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, thank you.
No, I've taken a few oaths, so
Yes.
I'm thinking, okay,
Yeah. I appreciate both y'all taking this on in such short notice. Not being ready. We got it going now. Next, we'll let Daniel lead us in our visioning process for 24 or 25.
Okay, so this morning, it's really been a long morning already. We're going to talk about a couple different things. This morning, we're going to start off with your kind of routine annual updates that we get from staff every year. I'll be filling in for Nicole. Parks staff is out today. We have the chair of the Parks Recreation Trails Committee coming today at 10 o'clock to talk about things from the committee point of view. And then we're going to spend a good chunk of time on the personnel manual. That's something that we've been working on for quite some time now. And it's to the point where it's just about wrapped up. So I want to go through it with you guys, not line by line, but in a lot of detail, so that you have an understanding of what's changing. There's no significant changes in it. There's a lot of updates to it, but there are a few things I want to make you aware of. And then we've got lunch scheduled at noon, and then at 1 o'clock we have a closed session scheduled for you all to meet with a potential interim town manager candidate. And then if we haven't finished the personnel discussion, we'll pick that back up after lunch, and then we'll get into specific budget discussions, which will include some highlights of things that you'll need to consider as you work with your interim to get a budget adopted, both operationally speaking and on the capital needs side of things, which will be a fun discussion this year because you've got your park master plan that you can look to for some exciting new projects. Does anybody have any questions or have anything they want to make sure we specifically cover today?
Not to start with, I don't.
Okay. Well, we're ahead of schedule. I'm gonna hand it over to Sue for your
Spread this early.
quarterly financial update. You have a copy of this on your table.
Not a lot has changed since your last update at the end of the first 6 months, other than our revenues are even further ahead, which is great. They just keep coming in strong. You'll get a tax update in just a minute, and sales tax revenues are ahead. For Shay's benefit, this has changed a little bit since you saw it last. All of your property tax, including motor vehicle, are all combined on the first line, and your sales tax revenue includes all of your utility sales tax as well. Interest on investments continues to be gangbusters, but we have been warned again, the interest rates are going down. And to not anticipate it to be that way, and to also not anticipate your sales tax revenues to continue to increase. Your expenditures, everybody's pretty much where you would expect at this time of year, because you're not quite 3/4 of your budget. So there are a couple of departments that are one-time expenditures. Your fire line item is actually showing 100.4%. We will be doing an adjustment to the budget at the end of March, and that will shift it down. We'll have to increase the budget because collections are higher than we anticipated when we did the budget, which is just the way it should be. Well, this fund balance percentage was for Randy's benefit, but the estimate, you're at 81.71% right now, which is ahead of your fund balance policy, which is 60. Your goal is 65 to 75%. I made absolutely no updates to your operating and capital budget. We've made no progress on capital budgets. And your total uncommitted fund balance has gone up to $3.8 million. Though I know we have many projects coming up. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
The miscellaneous revenues and contributions, what does that consist of?
That's donations.
Okay.
Probably 98% of them are for the park.
Okay.
Somebody wants a memorial bench,
Gotcha.
something like that, or we get an odd check in the mail for a refund or something that nobody anticipated,
Okay.
but it's usually a very minimal part of your budget.
Exactly. I just seen it and couldn't figure out what that was exactly.
Well, it's a great question.
Anybody got any other questions on this part of it?
On the revenue side, the grant funds, the $263,000 that is budgeted, that's for the access playground?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Anything else before we move on? Okay. We'll move on to the next section.
Okay. So we've got a budget calendar for your review. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped Arlie. Arlie, could you
How could you forget?
pick up at some point?
So, as of the end of February, we collected a little over not quite $66,000 in February. So as of February 29, we've collected $623,655.09, leaving us a balance of not quite $82,000 to collect. In March, the beginning of March, we sent out 19 pre-foreclosure letters. We've heard from 6 people either making arrangements to pay or paying the taxes. They have until next Friday to get in touch with me. And we sent out 23 pre-bank attachment letters, and 12 of those accounts have paid or made arrangements to pay. And again, they also have till next Friday to get in touch with me and let me know that they're thinking of us.
Okay.
They're going to send us a little bit of something. As of yesterday, we made our 98% collection rate that we've budgeted for. So everything else is gravy. And we have just a little bit over $70,000 to collect.
Okay. Awesome.
And that's all I've got.
Appreciate the hard work on that. Any questions for Arlie? Okay, we'll move on.
Okay. So part of the annual budgeting process is getting a calendar put together so that everyone is aware of the public process involved in the budget development. And typically we kick that off in the formal sense with your annual budgeting session, visioning today. So that's what we're doing today is the annual visioning process. There are a few internal deadlines that I have not published on this page, but those are things that are statutorily required that are due to the manager. For example, departmental requests are due by April 30th of every year. Those are typically turned in much earlier than that. That's what the statute requires. So the second meeting in April has traditionally been where your nonprofits have come and requested funding. So that's what we're assuming will be the same case this year. May 9th is when the anticipated budget will be presented to you. And then we have scheduled a budget work session for the following week. So May will be a busy month, but last year and prior years, we've toyed with the idea of having that or not having it, and have found that there's more questions than not after we present the budget. So we went ahead and scheduled it for the following Thursday. And then the Thursday after that, which would be your next regular meeting on the 23rd, will be the capital improvement plan discussion, where you would spend specific time on just the CIP discussion. And then we're anticipating a public hearing to be held on June 13th, wherein you could adopt the budget at that point, but you don't have to. You are required to hold a public hearing. In the last few years, the process has been conducting the public hearing and then closing it and then adopting it the next meeting. You're free to do that. You're free to adopt it that night if you're comfortable with it. And then the hard deadline we have is July 1st, which is when the budget needs to be adopted. That's not been an issue in the past, and it won't be either. It won't be this year either, but that is your hard deadline coming up. When the interim is hired, I will work with that person to kind of fine tune the budget process internally and share that with you once they're here. And it'll follow the same general process as it has been in prior years. And I will do my best to develop the budget from an operational standpoint as much as we can. Typically, every year we get estimates from the county tax assessor about what the property values are in town, and we get those starting in February and usually go through May. At some point, we have to pick which one we're going to use to develop the budget. The last few years, I have used the numbers from the month of March, and they're being fine-tuned every month. So we usually get those mid-month, So with any luck, we'll get those next week or the week after, and we can plug that in. That's just for your property and motor vehicle tax. But that is obviously one of your largest sources of revenue, so it's important to get those numbers. Any questions on the budget calendar?
No, looks good.
All right, next on our list for updates, I'm going to hand it over to Mike to give you a quick snapshot of what's been going on with planning this year and a few things coming up. Go for it, Mike.
Great, thanks everyone. So again, the statistics I put together for this year is just meant to give you a brief snapshot. We have more data available, so if there's anything we haven't addressed today, just let me know and we can put that together and send it out via Daniel to you guys. So for 2023, we had a total of 181 zoning permits versus 205 last year, so about 11% decrease. I think I've mentioned a few times, I don't think this is reflecting any change in development in the town, just, you know, nationally with interest rates and the economy and stuff like that. A little bit of a dip. 30 of those were non-residential permits, so commercial, industrial, stuff like that. 151 were residential. Again, that can include everything from a single family home to a deck. No major subdivisions this past year in 2023. We did have 2 in 2022, which was the submission for Mills River Crossing Phase 4, which has paused and been held up. And then we had 1 commercial subdivision off Marlowe Drive behind the liquidation center where they're putting a new warehouse back there. Again, I don't think it's an indication of growth slowing down in the town. We're just between a couple of large residential projects right now with Mills River Crossing completing the build out, and then reserves at Rover Farm on Banner Farm Road. They're maybe a third of the way through their house build out. We had 25 total subdivision plat reviews this past year. So 11 minor subdivisions, which again is less than 10 lots, 3 family subdivisions, and 11 exempt or non-standard subdivisions. The exempt or non-standard ones are usually easements. We've had to do a lot more of those because with the watershed regulations, we now have to check every subdivision plat, even if it's just an easement that doesn't trigger our regulations, to make sure the watershed notations are on there. But that's been about consistent between this year and last year with the other subdivision types outside of major. We had 1 rezoning this last year, which was the Butler Bridge Road property, the air check facility, versus 2 last year, which were the shopping center and another Butler Bridge Road property. Again, I think that's pretty consistent to see 1, 2, maybe 3 a year. We did 2 minor special use permits this year. They were both for the shopping center. Of course, 1 was withdrawn right at the last minute, and then we had the 1 that was approved for the shopping center. And again, we had about 2 last year, 1 major special use, which was for the townhomes, and then 1 minor, which was for the air traffic control tower at the Asheville Airport. Watershed permits is something we've really built out this year. So we had 13 total watershed permits. 11 of those were for residential construction and 3 were for commercial projects. Zoning verification letters, again, that's where staff puts together a form letter verifying the zoning and regulations for a specific parcel of land. A lot of times that's done pre-development or pre-sale. So again, a realtor or a developer knows what they can do on that property. We had 12 of those this year and 17 last year. So again, a slight dip. And again, I just attribute that to the national economy and everything. Text amendments to our zoning codes. We had 4 this past year and then 3 the year before. So again, consistent there. We had the 1 annexation request, which was a new one for us. And then going into code enforcement, now that we've hired a planning technician, we worked through the backlog of cases, historical cases that had not been addressed, about 10 of those. But specifically in 23, we had 18 actual code cases. Those aren't always complaints because, again, not every complaint actually is a violation of the ordinances itself. 14 of those we've closed and 4 of those remain open, and we're working through those. A couple just major milestones for the department in the last year. We implemented and passed conditional zoning, which is a big change for us and is I think we're going to possibly see one of those submissions this next in 2024. We launched the water supply watershed permitting program, and we continue to build out that function. This next year, we're really looking to kind of build out the inspection and enforcement part of the program. So again, if a developer's putting in a storm water control device, making sure that operates and is doing its job in perpetuity, that falls on the town to do. Believe it or not, been a little over a year since we launched SmartGov, the online permit system. We're continuing to refine that. You know, I feel like every month there's a little thing that needs to be tweaked in the software. So, but believe it or not, most of our permits now are coming through online, and again, allows for credit card payments, which is not something we were able to offer to people before. So that's been a big improvement. I mentioned before, and thanks for council's support of this, we hired and trained a new planning technician. It's the first time in the town's history we've ever had 2 planning staff, but it is needed just with all the growth we're experiencing right now. And then our planning technician completed the UNC School of Government Planning and Development Regulation course and got his certified zoning official status. So he's really come up to speed and is helping out the department a lot. Couple big permits, and I'm sure you've heard me say these at different meetings, but we issued permits for the Legacy. That's a big one that's been in the works for a while. I think over 400 dwelling units there. The Jeffers Townhome Development, about 148 dwelling units there. The shopping center in 2024, but we're actually expecting to issue that permit today. The Asheville Airport Air Traffic Control Tower was another big one we issued. And that's the most notable projects. Another thing we did was adopted the bicycle and pedestrian plan, Go Mills River, another first for the town. Again, a concept plan, just taking public input and the consultants' guidance to look at where we might do pedestrian and multimodal improvements in the community going forward. And then the UDO project is going to be the next really large project for the department. Again, Unified Development Ordinance, and really looking at updating our codes across the board, including the zoning map itself. Obviously, one thing we've talked about with the planning board, and even though the annexation didn't get approved, it brought up a very important point, which is the mixed use zoning district, and it not being consistent with our future land use map and what the citizens desired for those areas of town. So that's something we're tackling at the planning board level right now, looking just at the southern part of town, along the Boylston Highway corridor, south of Schoolhouse and Turnpike. But again, I think when we hire the consultant and actually get into the UDO project, that's probably something we're going to be looking at town-wide. You know, is mixed use still appropriate for those areas? When again, the future land use goal is to transition it really to rural residential areas. On the UDO, just with some of the management changes here and talking with the consultant, I'm recommending we move the start date or kickoff for that project to August. He had originally suggested May, but I think with everything going on, and again, just like the bicycle ped plan, we're going to need to form a subcommittee. But with all that, I basically recommended that we kick that project off in August, and then it also lines it up with the fiscal year as well. I believe in the CIP that's budgeted $100,000 a year for 2 years, so it is expected to be an 18 to 24 month project, and we do expect to use that full budget of $200,000. Couple other just smaller commercial projects, again, just trying to demonstrate the growth happening in the town. All About Plumbing on Old Haywood Road added a 6,000 square foot new building and expanded their site. Obviously, Appalachian Mountain Brewery across from Ingalls is a new addition to the town. We permitted both watershed and zoning. B&F Ceramics facility with about 120,000 square foot of warehouse space on Boylston Highway next to the fire department was one we permitted and is opening this year. The new 15,000 square foot warehouse on Marlowe Drive behind the liquidation center is another new one. Eurosport Motorcycle, which is a motorcycle dealership and service center, they opened on Old Fanning Bridge Road this year. And then Hills Machinery completed their site with their 4th building, about 10,000 square feet there. All of those, believe it or not, are fully leased up and occupied now. Obviously, Mills River Fire Station opened with their 20,000 square foot building. and then Summit Storage up on the hill above the old Haywood Boylston intersection. They completed their phase 2 build out and are completely open now with over 104,000 square foot of self-storage space. Those are all the main updates. Again, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. If you want other statistics, I'm happy to provide those to you. But yeah, let me know. Thank you.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, move on.
Mike, on the legacy, that was just the first phase of that project, right? That's being permitted, not the full 400.
Correct. So the legacy, again, the full development, I think, is like 450 dwelling units. We just issued the permits for phase 1, which is about half of the duplex and single family homes, and then I think half of the main buildings in the center, the 6-story buildings. I did just drive out there this week, and it looks like they're just starting sediment erosion control and some ground site work. So again, we do expect that to kind of ramp up throughout the year. But you're right. I think once they get a little further along with phase 1, they'll apply for phase 2, which would be the other central buildings, and then the rest of the single family homes.
Gotcha.
Yes, there was a height limit. The special use permit way back from 2008, I think, had a height limit of 76 feet it was.
Yeah.
So again, we spent a lot of time reviewing those plans and being very careful that they stayed within that. So I think two of the central buildings are about at that height limit or just below it.
If I remember correctly, they had to pre-sale so many of them to get state authorization to move forward.
I believe that's the case.
Yeah.
I think the type of facility and the licensing or how it's permitted through the state, they had to pre-sale a certain amount in order to start
Okay.
construction. So they've reached that at least for phase 1.
Okay.
And then the last thing I'll add, Shay, for your benefit, I think you were still on the board when this happened, but the county kind of handed us watershed management responsibilities in 2021, right before Mike started here. So he's been working with the state and the council to develop a watershed ordinance and the watershed maintenance program, which is what he was talking about. So all watershed responsibilities have been handed from the county to the town.
And again, that's controlling the amount of built upon area or new impervious surfaces on a parcel if that land drains to one of our 2 drinking water intakes.
Did you have to go get some kind of certification to do that, or how did that work?
No, I had some experience where I worked
Okay.
before, but it's really just been learning the regulations, and there's been a bit of a learning curve.
Okay.
But no, we're working through it.
Gotcha.
Mike, you did get the stormwater BME inspection certification, right?
Yeah, so Kevin and I are both certified stormwater inspectors. So again, this year I was talking about building out the inspection and enforcement program. So again, there are some stormwater control devices that exist in the town that actually were permitted by the county. Well, that's our responsibility now. So again, this year we're going to look at compiling all those, looking at the ones we permitted just recently. And then again, Kevin and I basically have a checklist where we can go out and verify those devices are operating. But again, it's on, and this is something we'll do some education about and send letters to property owners about. It's actually the responsibility of the property owner to send us an annual inspection report, and then we go out and verify it.
Okay.
Is there any overview process from the state when we take on the water supply watershed program?
There is. There's an annual report that the state watershed administrator sends out to all the communities, and so I did fill that out last year. And they do state enforcement, or I guess check in with municipalities that they've not really heard from. But again, our goal is to kind of build it up to the point where we're in compliance with all the state requirements. I don't think there's a threat of us being checked in on by the state anytime soon. They basically said as long as we're communicating with them, and now we have the ordinance in place, we're in pretty good standing. But they do check, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, moving forward.
All right.
So a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Parks and Recreation update. Again, Nicole and Michelle are not able to make it today, so bear with me one moment while I work through their presentation. All right, so as you all know and have seen, Parks and Recreation is a very busy department for the town. It's also our largest department with 5 full-time employees and 3 part-time. So they've been very, very busy. And Michelle, our new programmer, has been doing a phenomenal job growing our programs that we had and adding a lot of new stuff. So the first part of this presentation is going to be a recap of what we've been working on this year. And then we'll get into a few things coming up next year. So last year we did Brunch with the Bunny, which was a big success. And was it Kevin who was the bunny last year? Okay, our planning technician, Kevin, was the bunny. He did a wonderful job. And we started hosting refit classes, which initially were just 1 day a week, but now are 2 days a week. And we have a pretty consistent turnout for those. And we have an instructor that lives nearby, and she comes over, and we pay her based off the amount of folks that register and actually attend the courses. Mills River Day was a big success this year. There were a lot of people out. It was the first time since the pandemic that we were able to host this. So thank you to North River Farms for hosting. And we are planning to do the same thing this year. The date is May the 4th. This was an exciting project for the town. The North Carolina Wildlife Commission has a program for a snorkel trail in various parts of the state, and Mills River was picked as a site, and we had a grand opening for that. So there's educational signage down by the river, and this was completed last summer. Has anybody been snorkeling in the Mills River? I suggest a wetsuit. This was a fun one. We've done things like this in the past, but picked it up again last year. We had the Picnic with Professionals days throughout the summer. The fire department came out, the sheriff's office, North River Farms, and then Ascendum, which is the heavy equipment dealer up on 280, brought some equipment out. These were all very successful, very strong attendance, and very well received by the community. Movie nights, we held 3 of those again this year, and those were huge successes. One of them was a little bit chilly, but overall there was a great turnout, and there's a lot of positive feedback. And in fact, yesterday I was in the park helping Michelle with the public input for the new master plan, and that was one of the main questions we got, is where are they going to have the movies and when are they going to start again? So that was fun. Party in the park, always a big deal at the park. Back to school supplies. This year the weather was a little bit not perfect, so attendance was a little down over prior years, but overall it was a success. Gave out a lot of bike helmets to kids, and the town has already been awarded some grant funding from the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club to purchase more helmets, and is awaiting feedback from the state DOT on its bike helmet grant, and we've been successful in securing that for the last several years, so we're expecting to get that money again. Family campout, this was the first one for us, also a big success. People could get s'mores. We had fire pits. There's s'more packets. We had fire pits out there, and then people stayed overnight. Did anyone stay the night? Were you there for the movie, Sandra? I can't remember. Yeah, that's what I thought. It was a big success. And of course, Santa Tour. Can't forget about the Santa Tour. Thank you to Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus for their attendance again this year. The rain was pretty intense this year, but it didn't really slow things down from what I saw anyway. I wasn't out on the field, but on the photos that I got and posted, there was a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. People were very interactive on Facebook this year, which was fun. And I think it was a big success. Any of the elves or Santa Claus or Mrs. Claus have any feedback on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, makes it, yeah. surprising how many elderly people's out.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. There's almost as many of them as there are kids, are they not? It's very exciting to go make a lap.
Yeah.
It's an all day lap, but it's a lap.
It's a big event, and it's being a lot of people in the community outside of Mills River know about it, even better, which is fun. Rudolph party in December. I don't know anything about this, so I'm not going to speak to it, but it looks like it was a good time. I think they had a good turnout. Oh, okay. That's right. I remember now. This was a big success for the town. This was volunteer labor, staff labor. We finished the butterfly garden, aka the pollinator garden, this year, which was a nice addition to some sort of dead space down by the main shelter. It's completed. It's a nice little walkthrough there. Check it out in a couple days, and it starts to warm up. You'll probably see a lot of native species out there doing their thing. The next big project that I guess you could say is done, almost done. The seeds are planted. We converted the lower field, about 2/3 of it to a wildflower space. So that'll be a mix of native wildflowers and grasses. We'll still have about a 10-foot strip along the bike path all the way around, but then you'll get into the field area. And that was in partnership with the state and the federal government, which was awesome. And those seeds were just planted maybe a week or 10 days ago. And then the open space project, which is the area that is within the silt fencing and within the lower field, that's about 4 acres, I believe. And last fall, Moore and Son came and graded that. And the purpose of that is just to create more open managed lawn that is not programmed. So there won't be soccer games, there won't be anything like that. It's really just a place to go hang out, fly kites, have a picnic, whatever you want to do in the open space. This is, I say done, but there's still some finishing touches to be completed. Obviously removing all the silt fence and then matching that grade in with the existing grade, and then getting rid of the stormwater detention system. So that'll be wrapped up probably this spring. Installed new bench swing, always a big hit. When we get floods coming, we actually lift those things up and hang them from the top of the support, which is funny looking, but it keeps them dry. All right, get ready. So refit, again, this is Tuesdays and Thursdays. Started off just 1 day a week, but it's been very consistently popular, which has been great, and that's held in this room. This is another exciting one that we're doing. Michelle is actually hosting a Couch to 5K class twice a week, and does anyone who's participating want to talk about how that's going?
It's going well.
Yeah. The idea is to get folks up and running, and then on April 20th, Mills River Brewery is hosting a 5K race. The town's not involved in that in terms of a sponsorship, but that's kind of the goal for the participants in the program, is to run that 5K.
Laura and I are doing your volunteering spot out there.
Okay. It just says 5K. It don't have a time to it, does it? Yeah, exactly.
All right. Tennis and pickleball lessons kicked off last month, and those are 3 days a week. And then pickleball is twice a week. Coach Dennis, who plays tennis, is the guy in charge of that. And no one laughs at that, but I just think it's hysterical. The tennis guy? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Somebody laugh with me. Yeah. Anyway, that's been a big hit. They had a lot of people sign up very quickly for that. This unfortunately had to be delayed. This was supposed to be tomorrow, Mills River Kids Fishing Day. And Michelle and the park staff did a phenomenal job pulling together a ton of volunteers for this. We pushed it to April, thank you, 13th. And the river will be stocked so that hopefully kids can come in and catch all the fish they want. And this kind of came out of the Tackle Loaner program project. But there'll be volunteers on staff to help kids bait the hooks, take care of the fish, clean the fish. It'll be a great time. And we capped it at 60 participants, and it was full immediately. And there were 75 kids on the waiting list as of yesterday. So the folks who had registered for tomorrow were given an opportunity to re-register for the 13th, and that'll be back open to the public. But we suspect that'll be a very busy and fun day at the park. Brunch with the Bunny is coming up very soon. And who's going to be the bunny this year? Do we know?
Josh.
Okay, Joshua Voorhees from our Parks and Recreation Department is going to be the bunny this year. Always a good time. Come check it out. Bring the little kids with you. This is a new program that we're doing, free group hikes. So Michelle and Josh in our Parks Department recently completed their wilderness first responder training, and we will be leading free hikes in Pisgah or DuPont or other areas in the county or neighboring counties. Don't have a date for this yet, but that is something that we're looking forward to launching later this year. And then, of course, the big one in the spring is Mills River Day. That's coming up on May the 4th, and we suspect the same turnout, if not more, this year, now that it's the second year in a row we've been able to have it after the pandemic. But that's always a big hit with the community. We're lining up some guest speakers from Congressman Edwards' office, as well as our state folks. So that's always a good event. Live music all day long. Horse shows, tractor shows. Anything else that going on, Shaq? It's a big party.
About 5,000 people last year.
5,000 people. Holy cow. I didn't realize it was that high. That's fantastic. Tennis summer camp is coming up this summer, and I don't know what the registration is for that, but I'm guessing it's full. Those things tend to fill up pretty quickly. That's also being coached by Dennis to play tennis.
Yeah, I love it. Don't you?
All right, so movie nights in the park coming up starting in June. The last couple of years, we've had a little bit of trouble with the October date because it starts to cool off that time of year, and you never know if it's going to be too cold. So we just went ahead and pushed everything up this year a month. So we're starting in June of this year with Barbie, and then August there'll be Aquaman, and on September 28th, which I believe is also the campout night again, they're going to be showing Wonka. So come out to that. It's always a good time. Rugby middle school athletics department usually runs a concession stand as a fundraiser for their departments, or excuse me, their sport athletes. Starting up again with Picnic with Professionals. Looks like we have quite a few more days this year. The forestry folks are coming with Smokey the Bear. North River Farms is coming again. Ascendum as well. And the fire department, sheriff's office. EMS will be fun. They always have a lot of bright, shiny lights to show off. And then the Humane Society will be out. Yes, we are doing family camp out September 28th this year. Same as we did last year. There'll be fire pits and s'mores and all that kind of good stuff. And then the Santa Tour is scheduled for Saturday, December 14th of this year. So we'll be putting out a call and letters to the elves soon to get people scheduled to come spread cheer and joy throughout the town. And then lastly, for the calendar year, we've got the Rudolph Party cookie decorating again. That's scheduled for December 18th. That's it for the year in review. Tristan Cowie from the Parks and Trails Committee will be here at 10 o'clock to present. They've been coming the last few years to present on behalf of the committee their requests of town for projects in the upcoming year. So we've got a few minutes to fill before Tristan gets here. Are there any questions about Parks and Recreation? I'll do my best to answer them. If not, we'll get answers back to you.
Is most of the stuff that the parks does, involve grants?
Not most of it, no. Some of it does. Like the Party in the Park, the helmets that we give away, those are grant funded. Those come from state funds, and then the Blue Ridge Bicycle Club usually provides some funding as well.
And the butterfly garden, the wildflower garden,
Mhm.
those are things.
Those did involve grants, yes. Yeah, the wildflower meadow was, the Mills River Partnership actually secured some funding for another project. And that project didn't align timeline-wise with us, so that money was actually transferred to the wildflower meadow, which covered a big chunk of it. Mhm. Mhm. They are, yeah. Michelle and Nicole, they know who to reach out to and how to write the grant, so they've been very successful in that. And then we mentioned earlier during the budget update that we have that Parks Accessibility Grant for the ramp sidewalk project down to the playground. That won't be spent entirely this year. It'll roll over to your next fiscal year. But they are making progress on it. And then we've got the grant application coming up for the master plan. So that would be a big one. That's due in May.
Any other questions? If not, we'll take a little break and wait on him to get there so the timing stays on board, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. No questions? We'll take a break.
And if we get the award, I will get the key over there. Okay.
Nothing major. Just going over everything. Anything you need to get caught up on. Me, Daniel, somebody gets caught back up on it. I'm sure we'll talk about a bunch of it again before it's over with.
All right, you're all set, Mayor.
Okay, we'll get started again after a break here. We got James Cantrell back with us. And we'll just let you lead us and tell us where we're at.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we just went through the updates from the Parks and Recreation Department, and Tristan Cowie, the chair of the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Advisory Committee, is here to speak on the committee's behalf. And Tristan, the microphone's all yours.
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, so I think Daniel kind of covered most of the what we've done over the past year in details and shown you the presentation. I guess I wanted to take a moment to thank you for your support and everything you guys have done, and also kind of talk about what we recommend for the new property. We wanted to do a phased plan. I know going forward, budget planning might be a little in suspension. Maybe that's not the right word. Planning forward, thinking about things, thinking about where you want to spend money. We really want to recommend putting forth some funding to infrastructure. The public is really excited about this new property. They want to use it. So starting with roads, starting with, thinking about some bathrooms. Nicole can speak a little bit more to stream bank restoration, but there's some areas that need some looked at, some improvements. So set aside some funding for that. But I think that the main thing is trails, roads, infrastructure. So then down the road we can build a little bit more on top of that. So what other? Did I miss anything? You kind of covered. Any questions?
I'm sure the committees, when you say infrastructure, we probably need to just sit down and make sure we're pretty much where we're going to put everything. I mean, we got the master plan, but specifically think about what we need to those spots, water, power, and get that in even before we do roads and trails, I would think, so we don't have to bore under or cut them in two again.
Correct. Yeah, and part of that's going to be that public input.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of deciding on that, on the plan, is this what the public likes after your recommendations? And then we can kind of start doing that next step. But I think at minimum, trying to push for infrastructure of some sort. So then down the road, it's already kind of, it's a lot cheaper to do it now, even though it's not the exciting stuff, cheaper to do it now than to rip out a bunch of stuff to install plumbing.
Gotcha.
So
as I look at this master plan, I don't know if the committee's thought much about it or not, but the parking area that's going to be coming up in behind here.
Yep.
Then the one that's over in behind the market, this parking here, or has anybody said anything about needing to raise it up? Because, it looks really good on the flat. But I can imagine the slope coming up from the market area, that parking might be kind of on a tilt, and it might be easier for those. And I know I'm just visioning. I'm just thinking those things will need to be on an angle instead of trying to come in, because when you open the door, it's going to swing so quick into the next car beside you. That's one of my thoughts that I thought about this week.
Fair, yeah. Yeah.
It lays perfectly flat out there now. I just don't know if this group up here on the top with the cul-de-sac, are we just going to, or is these people just going to come up the steps? Are we just, because, we got probably a 6-7 foot elevation change.
I don't know that we've gotten that far into the design detail. I had always envisioned that it would be a little bit lower than town
Just
hall,
leave it down.
and there would be a ramp on either side and then steps up the middle. But
With us, and that's going to be fine for now. I don't want us to commit fully to that until we decide what we're going to do this way. Because if we lose this over here, then it's going to be a big game changer for even handicap access to getting back in this building. So,
Sure. Yeah.
I ain't saying we would lose all of that out there, but we need to get the committee started thinking about some of that public access into this building, especially on big meeting nights or even daily. I mean, as I come by here daily, I can't tell how much use is in the playground because it's so handy here versus how many people's in here needing to be in here. That would be probably some staff recommendation would probably help on that number.
For sure, yeah. And we as a committee really enjoyed your feedback as council, changing the what we recommended to kind of have things a little bit more centralized around town hall. But yeah, I think for our recommendations now, I think just the basics, the roundabout, improve like switching the entrance, and just trying to think okay, let's go ahead and earmark some funds towards roads, parking lots. We're not to that level of detail yet.
I'd add into a list of things that you don't want to pay for, but you have to. Stream restoration to get us in good graces with the regulators, Army Corps, EQs. Sooner we can get out from underneath their scrutiny. Hopefully there's going to be grants in conjunction with that work, but still it'll be a pretty big bill for taxpayers have to pay to restore that stream. Get us back on the right side. So I think that we need to get that off the list
Gotcha.
pretty quick. And we can focus on the stuff that residents really want. But infrastructure is one of those things no one wants to pay for, but it's critical. That stream restoration too is up on top of that list too. I don't know if the committee takes much time to talk about that component of the park.
For sure. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of like the public's excited. It's a new, it's a ton of property, and there's a ton of, you're thinking, you're envisioning, what we can do there, but it's like you got to do all the nitty gritty stuff, like the boring, before you get a chance to, you don't have to, but it's a lot, more cost effective in the long run to do that. So.
I'll add the mayor's concerns about the access from the event lawn area, but maybe some of that elevation change can be addressed architecturally.
Yeah.
If they're going to put a new facade and we revamp town hall, that some good architects can come in and figure out how to get people in without having to raise all the property
Gotcha.
to here and make it blend well. That's my hope.
Right.
False screen.
And I somewhat, yeah. It lays pretty flat, but the natural flow of stormwater from our property and other properties definitely need to be addressed.
Impacts from the runoff from the wide road probably before we do or really making amenity construction on there. So we'll know what we're dealing with. But I agree that managing the water that's coming on us is a big part.
And I don't know if all the committee members heard, you might want to pass it on, but we talked the last meeting, if we decide to add on to this building, it might be easier for us to go that way and flip flop the building around somewhat and use the pad that's already up here for building.
Right.
That way we could still maybe function while it's being done, once we cut that circulation all through here. Then, yeah, that's what brought that. I got to thinking about where we're going to park everybody and how easy is it going to be to get in the building.
Right. I think we talked a little bit about that.
Okay, as long as everybody's aware of what brought that up.
I would like you to talk to Mills River Partnership, Maria Wise. Just yesterday, she was saying there's a phenomenal amount of grants available right now for Green Bay Restoration Way. So much so, I don't think that group has enough projects to do it all. So that might be something to think with.
For sure.
That it's just enable on it.
I can
Yeah.
note of that so our interim can deal with
Yeah.
that.
James, you know what grant source should?
I know, yep, none to my thought, I can tell you later.
I mean,
Yeah.
we looked at, Clean Management Trust Fund for grants, and that's, I believe it's a 50/50 match, if I'm not mistaken. There's two grant sources that Nicole was looking at, but yeah, if you can send them.
There was, what she was talking about yesterday was like $500,000 and the only match could be in kind. So essentially, we can know, I'll
I mean, I don't know specifics, but the current stream bank restoration was pretty significant grant money. Yeah, so that's all Nicole.
Right.
She'll be able to pull that.
I think it would be good to.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain those deadlines come up like this summer.
For sure. And I think, to my understanding, again, I'm not an expert on this, but it helps to have that phased approach where it's like, okay, this is what we're putting money towards, and this is what we want to accomplish. You know, kind of overpromise or underpromise, overdeliver, and then here's our plan going forward.
The input session yesterday, did we get quite a bit of input back, or
We
since
had
it was such a
probably-
pretty day?
We had probably 20 people stop by and attend, and about half of them provided written comment. Some of them had already provided feedback online, with the surveys online. And then a few folks just walked by and said, we like everything. I guess the consistent theme I heard was they're excited about the walking trails, excited about the market space, and people were really interested in the bike skills area in the bike plaza. I'm not an expert, so if you want to, that would be.
I think that's, I mean, yeah, to take that phased plan a little bit further, it's, you know, again, at minimum, infrastructure, roads, so people can start using the area. Then the next step would be kind of thinking about, you know, the highest need areas. So the farmers market, finding them a home, and going ahead and kind of, you know, putting funds and effort behind that. If we were talking about the bike skills area, I mean, that's super popular around here. That's, I mean, I don't have any dollar amounts, but it's relatively low cost compared to other things. Compared to like a, you know, soccer field, baseball field, something like that. But yeah, I have no idea dollar amount. But
Gotcha.
um,
So
potential.
would you say by consistency, the Parks and Rec board is on board with building a new structure to put the farmers market under?
Yeah, that's a huge priority for us.
Okay.
We want to, you know, it's a huge part of this community, so we want to get behind it as much as we can.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's. But first, you need a way to get around.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly.
So.
Okay. Anybody, anything else?
I have more time on your agenda this afternoon to talk about budget needs and capital projects because you've heard Nicole say this, with this grant application coming up, there has to be a phase one that the town commits to for the first 5 years for implementation. So we need to get pretty solid understanding of what that first phase will look like. Not necessarily today, but by next week, so that they can get the grant application polished and ready to go. And then it'll come back to you once more before it's submitted one more time in April. So that is scheduled for later today.
If you, on the phase, does that mean like you could do all the plumbing at once and that's considered a phase, or do you have to like pave to the sand volleyball court and then stop?
There has to be some sort of recreational facility built as part of the phase. So you can list the plumbing as part of a project, but the application needs to be competitive, and so we need to show that we're building something that is worth the money that they're going to grant the town. So I don't know that I would include plumbing as a phase as far as the grant is concerned, but you could certainly phase the construction of the facilities such that plumbing is happening at the same time that you're getting ready to build these other facilities. So, but plumbing by itself wouldn't be sufficient.
Walking trails is low hanging fruit. They don't have to necessarily have to be paved. So, the problem with that is town's experience with this lower end of the property, Grant River, is that walking trails and agriculture really don't coexist very well. So I think it'd be great to go in there and put walking trails in first, make it part of phase one because it's low cost, but it gives residents ownership of that land because they can at least get on it, enjoy it, albeit not improved yet. But the downside is that if we don't have an ag lease on a lot of that property, then that's like, I'm not sure. I hope the committee will take that up, and Nicole probably has a lot of thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, and also that stream bank restoration. It's kind of like, well, you got a trail out there, but then maybe, the water egress is greater. So then you have to go back and like what comes first.
And I'm not, like I say, if we're doing the farm lease, I'm not too supportive of getting it ready and having our citizens walking by behind that big of a cornfield, trapped between it and the riverbank. We at some point, we could build it during the process, but as soon as you get it built, people's going to start using it. I just don't want to set us up for a disaster on that. If it's wide open and you can see from here all the way across through there, I just feel like people's going to be safer, I'm sure that storm bank restoration would not be any part of the recreation grant, so we're still got to figure this out. We need to send the committee, I guess, getting pinpointed on something that we want to attach to this, along with just the infrastructure to get to that and whatever else we can do.
Yeah, they have a meeting coming up on the 19th to go a little bit further detail into the plan.
Because that grant application is coming up in May, so we got to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think just in terms of thinking about what you can do in the first phase, walking trails are probably one of the more accessible projects because you can put the base down, but you don't have to lay the asphalt yet. That way, at least you have the trail corridors lined up or outlined, and then go back and add the asphalt later. Because this is a parks and recreation grant, so they're going to want to see that there's some legitimate parks and recreation facilities being established with the funding. Yeah, it would be.
One thing we're going to run into, as I'm sitting here thinking, is if we take that 100 to 150 foot stream buffer off, that's probably going to reduce that acreage in that ag lease, is it not?
It would, if it were not. Yes, I mean, if we were doing this a year from now and get ready to move on this project, then yes, it would take it off that lease. But for this year, it doesn't impact it at all.
Okay.
Dan, would you happen to know, so for the purpose of a grant application in phase one and recreation amenities, the fact that like the pickleball that is planned is actually on not the newly acquired property, it's just part of this master plan. That would still be counted towards the application, even though it's on the existing park fund. I guess I don't know how we're applying. Are we applying because we've acquired this new land?
Yeah.
It has to be on it. Or things like pickleball might be something
like
park and recreation project.
I can't say definitively if that would count, but as far as the grant itself, we are applying through the acquisition route because this is a reimbursement for the acquisition of land. But even when you're applying for acquisition of property, you still have to submit the master plan of what you're going to do with it. So, in a few years from now, we could apply for construction of the market structure, for example, and that's very clear what you're planning to do. I think that the pickleball courts would count because you're showing the overall park, and that would be a phase of the new project. But I would have to have Nicole talk to the folks at the Part F agency about whether that would count or not. Yeah, they don't necessarily have to be two separate projects, but the projects themselves will be different scales. So the riverbank would be obviously a whole, yeah, right. And then the stream bank would be behind Mills River Village that's currently just straight as an arrow. They would reestablish, proper meanders and things like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're reserving that 150 feet of space on the master plan as just a placeholder because we don't have engineered drawings or anything like that, so we don't know exactly how wide it's going to be. But you have to account for the stream corridor itself and its meanders, but then you have to have a buffer off the stream as well. So there's some wiggle room there potentially.
What else we got for him? Anything? Daniel, while he's here, do we just want to go on into potentially start thinking a little bit about what we're going to do this evening, since we got quite a bit of time between now and 11?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So this evening you was going to look at getting us to kind of pinpoint some of these things to take back to the committee, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. So there's really two considerations. One, you have the grant application that you need to make strong in terms of what you're funding to build. But then on top of that, another budget discussion sort of parallel is before you can really do too much over there, you have to keep the infrastructure in there. So one idea that we could consider is this main entrance road. It would be a public road, and we have PAL bill funding, and that money is specifically for the construction and maintenance of new and existing roads. So that could be part of the first phase, establishing that traffic circle and the new traffic pattern.
I'm gonna, as of right now, what I'm looking at, the one on the left would be exit only, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Does the committee think that that's a great idea just to have it exit only, or if we could somehow figure out a way to make it in and out, would that be better? Or have y'all even discussed that at all?
We talked about it. I think generally we thought it was a good idea. I think what we were trying to get, the whole traffic flow in general, we were trying to pull people into farther areas of the park, spread out the load. Because right now it's just kind of one avenue. Yeah, there's the river access off the dirt road, but this new plan would hopefully try to improve that flow to get people moving, into the new property and then also into the existing.
So if it just
back.
stayed exit only, y'all think that might be better?
I think
Or-
there's an issue with the size too. I don't.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right, but I think I might have a way around that.
That was our
Potentially,
issue.
potential way around that. My question would be though, like from Mr. Foster's standpoint, I'd like to hear his thoughts on that, because that would be pretty much adjacent to y'all's entrance, correct? It might prompt a traffic light at some point.
What I was about to say.
Mhm.
It would be great. It would be a traffic light.
And we talked to DOT a little bit about that out there, and they're real reluctant to put up traffic lights if they don't have to, especially with the new corridor to try to keep moving. But
It would slow down the traffic.
Yes. Um,
You have to remember, that's gonna be 5 lanes, it'd be like trying to take a left out onto 280.
mhm. And it will be divided though, or no? No, it'll have a turn lane. So yeah,
Two-way left turn lane, as they call it.
yeah.
Can I ask one question?
You go for the mic, Jim.
I think we're just,
Could you come up to the mic?
this whole concept, of course, is gonna take a lot of money down the road. But you can't do anything, the way I see it, without the infrastructure. Is this grant money we're talking about, can it be applied to the infrastructure?
I'm gonna let Daniel just explain that. I think it would be, this first one would be a reimbursement of our land that we purchased. But attached to it has to be a recreational component to make it qualify. Is that fair?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So we can list infrastructure and all that we're gonna re-spend this money on, but we have to say we're gonna do this recreational component element in this first phase to
Well,
make it qualify.
I would say infrastructure and the trail he just mentioned.
Yeah.
That would probably be the easiest thing to.
And how long do we have to construct the recreational component?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so we're good then. That makes a big difference. Yeah, makes a big difference. Mhm. Visual, yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. You got
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
I understand what part of grant is, there's a competitive nature to it too, so I
Mhm.
don't know if it's the board or who actually reviews the applications. But, you're seeking the maximum. Your project consists mostly of parking lots and infrastructure. While I'm trying to develop parks and recreation in North Carolina, that would not fare as well as one that had a lot more opportunities for kids or health, public health, that type of thing. So I think that's the balance.
Yeah.
We have to strike our phase one as we want to be attentive to the needs of developing park properly. I also want to be competitive so that we don't get beat out on funding because the state doesn't want to build park lots, they want to build recreation. So.
That's why I'm sitting here thinking if we know for sure that we're going to build the market spot, if it's going to happen, then maybe we need to get the committee thinking about how that could be. The roof system could be either raised or cathedral ceiling to provide basketball courts outdoor, but under roof, volleyball, something. We're going to have to, because we know we're needing that sooner than later, the way you're explaining it in the needs of the community.
Mm-hmm.
So we know probably in the next 5 years, if we're going to build this thing, if we can get it to where it looks like it's maybe take market off the top for as far as the committee reviewing this grant application and have, outdoor open shed, basketball courts, multi-purpose, and have it lined off or whatever. Foursquare, anything that you could possibly do in there and get it out of the weather, in the shade or out of the rain. I think that'd be a great sales point for this first grant application, because we know if the way we're talking, we're going to have to spend this money for the farmer's market. Let's try to get as much use as we can out of this thing,
Fair, yeah, good point.
And I don't know if you was in on the conversation, but Jeff brought up a good point last time, the bathroom facility here. And I know this is but y'all need to start thinking about this. We're probably going to have to tweak that bathroom, because that's going to need to be a drive-through facility for the trucks. If they're actually going to be, parking in it, it needs to be through. So we'll need to be able to make that happen when it gets officially done.
Right.
So the trucks and stuff the vendors can get in and out easier instead of trying to go between
I'm almost
through the
thinking
front and back of it.
maybe put it on the other side too.
Yeah. The
'Cause
biggest reason I bring that up is, we know infrastructure is going to be one of our first things, and we got to figure out where we're going to put that bathroom because we know we got to get everything to there.
I hate to inform you that I made a mistake. It's 3 years you have to complete.
I knew it was something. I didn't know what, but at least we know.
Yeah, I was just looking at the application, 3 years.
And I think it's important for all the council to know that we spend the money, we get reimbursed, correct?
Correct.
Yes, we spend it out of our budget, then we get reimbursed. And how quick does that process happen, Sue? It's quarterly money or something? I can't remember how it worked before.
Honestly, because you're at the mercy of the state and their systems, you're lucky if you submit it and get it within a quarter.
Okay.
It's not unusual for us to submit invoices quarterly and get reimbursed in the next fiscal year.
The reason I bring that up is if we're going to be pulling money out of our fund balance for these capital projects, and we're looking at our budget based on the interest we're making now, if we know we're going to be pulling $1 million plus out, we need to make sure we don't plan on that little interest helping us somewhere else down the line, so we get it back.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What Shannon said sounds good about making the building that they would slate on there as market usable for multi events and stuff. The building over here, where its big selling point was how tall and big it is. I mean, you could do anything on that, and it is never a multi-use would make more use for the residents.
Mm-hmm. We kind of had that penciled in for that future recreational area, but I like, swapping the market to multi-use is a little bit, gets our foot in the door.
I think it'll help even the community because, the market's using it, on Saturdays, portion of the year.
Right.
This will open that building up to a lot more uses a lot quicker.
I will say, I came to the Tuesday.
I'll get you up here since we're.
I came to the Tuesday in-house event, and Nicole did have a few plans that she showed me for a space like that, where you can use that open space for basketball or other types of events. So she is looking at that.
That'll be great.
So I appreciate that input.
Yes, that'll be great. What's the rest of you thinking? See anything that we're not seeing already that for this phase 1 process to get us looking better on paper?
As far as the phasing, I would like to see, that's technically 2 tracks of land where it was. Like, do we, focus on the market side, and then even if you have to do a temporary walking trail up it, do you leave that last track as an ag leaves for a while until you're done with the middle?
I would think that I would just take the advice of the committee as to how they envision the build out going. The needs of the people is what we need to really consider.
And just hate to
I know.
bush hog prime ag land for 15 years and then turn around and be like, oh, we're for ag.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think, I guess when thinking about infrastructure and thinking about the layouts, making sure that we're kind of using all of the land, unless there's like a longer term. I mean, the town bought all this property, so we want to hang on to it. So I think that we should kind of focus on using all of it eventually.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So-
for sure. But
Eventually, yeah. So that's why, like, going ahead and instead of like focusing right here on the market, like, okay, let's go ahead and build some infrastructure, road, plumbing, to get to the far reaches, to get to the back corner.
Yeah.
So,
The thing is at some point here too, even in ag lease, the closer we get to the build out phase of the section we're going, we really need the crop to change a little, because Shay will tell you, Jeff will tell you, or everybody knows, if you got in corn and the next year you're trying to get that in grass, you got with them stalks, the root system and everything in corn, you got a real rough undertaking. Even though it's going to be graded, we've got really great dirt out there to grow grass on. If not, super sod wouldn't be right across the river. The problem is we got a lot of rock. We had a ton of rock here. Remember, the first people that took the maintenance up here, they misbid it because they had to carry buckets on their lawnmowers and constantly stop and get off and pick up rocks that would have been devastating to their blades. So this whole thing out here, we get groups of people, remember, to come out here and go out there like we did on the baseball field in school and pick the rocks up in buckets, volunteers, to get them out of there. And as you walk it, Sandra knows, being that close to the river, there's pretty good sized stuff out there. So the maintenance of that the first few years, like on that event lawn and all, it would take us 2 or 3 years to get that nice grass. It's just the way it is here.
mm-hmm.
And every road we've got in here has got the fiber membrane under it because it's not a real supporting soil. So everything has pretty much engineered roads, so that cost is elevated slightly. But if we're going to do it, we definitely need to do it right.
Sure.
What else we got, folks? Anything y'all think of? Give him any other instruction to take back to their next committee meeting we're just going to run out of time pretty quick on this grant application if we ain't real careful.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Nicole and them will be on top of it, but we don't want to miss this deadline because they're only one a year, right? One grant application a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think if we can, yes. I mean, we got to if you put the market there, you're definitely going to have a bathroom to support it. So then you're going to have power and water to the bathroom, sewer out of the bathroom. Then you're going to have power. I don't know. We could put some ground hydrants or something out there, around it for sure. But you're going to have power to the market to light it because you're underneath the roof now.
When we look at bathrooms in the future,
Mm-hmm.
can we
Well, you might can, but you got to remember everything has got to be ADA, handicap accessible, turnaround areas inside of them.
Right.
They're going to be bigger than what you would think in nature just for the ADA restriction.
But we're gonna put $500,000 in every bathroom we can.
Well, that one had a picnic shelter attached to it, but you wait till you get to, what's that now?
Is that what, having a picnic shelter beside it, is that what's?
Well, yeah, you're trying to we're trying to keep everything consistent and match the best we can. They missed it down there, the architect missed it a little bit, on some of the specifications, I would say, on, making things look the same. But, exactly, that market building you're probably, I don't even want to say in an open meeting what I project that to cost, but it'll be astronomical. Oh, millions of
Yeah,
dollars.
million. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah. Oh. That parking area right in front of it's probably 500,000 or 600,000. So
Mhm.
his, you know, yeah. I seen all this coming. That's why when we had we was talking about reducing the tax rate, pulling that 2 cents off of it, you know. I wasn't for it. I was the only one I think it voted against it. But, you know, that 80,000 that we could have collected on each cent times 2 for 2 more years would have, you know, I just foreseen it coming. At some point, if we do this, like we're gonna have to raise the tax rate a little bit just to accommodate this, depending on how quick you want to build it out. And that'll be something we'll have to go over with our new managers.
I just have one thing to add. As I understand it, the part of grant is for $500,000. So you have to keep that in mind when you're doing your phase one. If we come up with $1.5 million or more on a cost, we've got to make up the difference. And we're only getting reimbursed on 500,000.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So what we need to look at is trying to get as close to $1 million budget on the items we're going to spend on phase one as close as possible. And that's why I say we're going to run out of time even getting some of those numbers back from the engineer, whoever's going to do it, preliminary numbers.
We've already expended $1 million that we would need for the match.
So that's going to be, that's right. That's reimbursement for property. That's saving that's going to be a saving grace. Thank you.
So we don't need to account for construction costs this year for facilities. I mean, I think we would want to get the numbers for it, obviously, but as far as the application goes, the reimbursement is for up to $500,000, and we spent over $1 million, so we've made that match.
Good, awesome.
And I'd say too, you know, I'd caution, you know, I think it's a better idea to have with this space and with the future use, you know, instead of doing 2 smaller bathrooms, do 1 larger, and then kind of keep growing, because this area is not getting any smaller, and there's going to be a lot of use in this park.
Yeah, Jeff may know, there's some kind of magic number to feet or minutes traveled or something between where they got to be.
But if it's a choice, like if it's a budget thing where it's like, oh, should we do this or this? I think, you know, always plan future, because it's going to be way more use than expected.
Okay.
But as far as the 500,000 and the grant this year, should we keep it at that amount?
Well, we can't change that. That's the
No, I'm
max.
saying, you know, sit here and say, all right, let's do the market first, but now you got to add a 0 behind your 500,000. Or are we going to do a project that is 500,000?
Well, that's up to us, of course, because like he said, we're asking for a $500,000 reimbursement in this grant for $1 million that we've already spent. So all their grants are matching grants. So we would have to spend $1 million first to get 500 back if they accepted our grant proposal. He's saying we've already spent the $1 million because it is for land acquisition to get that 500 back.
Yeah, and this is an unusual sequence. Typically, you apply for the grant, then you go buy the land and get reimbursed. But because we were approved for that waiver last year, because I don't know if you remember that discussion, but if you can prove that a project is at risk for development or acquisition by, say, a commercial entity, at risk for development, you can write a letter to the Part F agency requesting that we are allowed to go ahead and spend the money, and then we can still apply for the grant after the fact to get reimbursed.
Mhm.
So your match for this part F grant is already taken care of. You've already spent that cash to acquire the land. So when the grant application will show that whatever that purchase price was, and they'll match 50% up to $500,000.
Gotcha.
So your match for this grant cycle is essentially completed. You've already done it. So what you need to be thinking about is moving forward once this grant agreement is signed, which I think will be sometime in the fall, the town's awarded. You've got 3 years from that date for your phase one. And that phase one could be any number of different things, but I think the market is obviously a very strong, would make a very strong application.
But do we not need to put a dollar amount on phase one?
You don't need to for the grant application.
Not for the grant application, but if
So not,
over commit.
I always tell my kid, your eyes are bigger than your stomach.
Right. Yes, I mean, the town needs to know what it's committing itself to for sure. On the application though, because it's reimbursement, you only need to show that what you've already spent on the land acquisition. But if that's gonna be your phase one, then I would strongly suggest you get numbers as soon as possible on something like that, so that you can start budgeting for it accordingly. And you could always apply for another grant in the future that might offset that, but you don't want to count on that.
okay. What else you need from us? Think you got what we're looking
Yeah.
for?
Good. Thanks for the feedback. We'll talk about those items at our next meeting, and yeah, I think that's I think the message that we're trying to get to you is just think, long term, go ahead and start doing all the hard stuff now. It's not as exciting than building a building or building fields that you can use, but it's important to spend it now so you don't have to spend more later. So.
Right. And I'll say again, if y'all see meetings coming up that you'd like to have a council person or two there, if you'll let Nicole or somebody know, we'll try to work it out to where somebody can be there to, just to give you what they're thinking, we're thinking.
For sure.
you
Yeah.
know, to keep us dialed in, especially on this grant application, because we're running out of time quick. We need to make sure we focus and get that done, send it off, and then we'll move on. I don't want to miss this opportunity.
Coming fast. So yeah, thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks again for your
Thank you for
support.
being
Thanks
here.
for
Appreciate you.
2023 and looking forward.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on our agenda, I believe, is the personnel manual review. So we will start that.
Go ahead. Thank you. James, run to the bathroom for just 1 minute.
So I just texted Nicole, the pickleball courts, even though they're on existing property, could be included.
Okay. I would say it would be important for them to work on anything like that that we might get attached that's close to the infrastructure we already have. And maybe attached to this phase one if we can, if it makes us look better. If we know we can build it out with the money we got. Possibly, yeah. If we can get, yeah. My biggest fear about that is, see, that's not going to be Park and Rec related. See, it's not going to look good on that grant. It's useless on the grant application. Well, the river access is, but we would have to do the restoration first and then do the access. And I don't know if we can get the price on the restoration part of it by May to even see if we can do that out of our budget we got. That's my issue. Am I thinking wrong?
You're exactly right. It's sort of a,
You got to get
Cart
that.
before the horse thing.
Yeah.
You need to do the restoration before you put in your access points. But oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely jump on that. Okay, Daniel, we're ready. All set? All right, so you've heard me talk about this a little bit over the last few months, and I wanted to get this in front of you as soon as we could so we can get it, take a deep dive into it today. So the personnel manual was originally adopted in 2007, and it's been updated a few times since then. This is the first major overhaul, if you will, in several years. So I'm going to go through this, not line by line, but I'm going to highlight a few sections for you. I have a copy, the same exact copy you have, but I also have the original unedited version if you have specific questions. But really, I'm going to focus on things that have changed, not things that are the same that we're just leaving in there, but things that we've changed, whether removing or addition or adding to or modifying. A good chunk of this is going to be grammar and updating things, statute references, things of that nature. The other, I would say, maybe 40% is going to be new stuff, and then the last of it will just be rearranging and adding things that we needed to have just for best practices management, or best practices. So beginning on page 8, on line 268, we just added the word permanent or temporary, added that phrase to it, because before it was, I remember exactly what it said before, something about usually employed for 6 months or less. So this just clarifies who a part-time employee is. Okay. On page 11, I'm going to pull this up so that anyone, well, I can't pull it up, never mind. All right, on page 11, at the bottom of the page on line 381, you've got a section called employment. This is an entirely new section, but all it does is define individual employee types. So right now in the policy, we don't have a specific, we use some of these terms throughout the document, but we don't have specific definitions. So the first one is temporary part-time, seasonal employee. And these are the folks that typically work within a specific season. I'll use our park staff as an example. We have 2 gentlemen that work between the time changes. So they come back in March after the time moves forward, and then they're finishing up in November when the time falls back. So that's typically 6 months, and they're paid by the hour for what they work, and they can't work over 1,000 hours. Once you get to 1,000 hours, you have to start paying benefits, and we don't do that with the particular positions. On the next page, we've got a permanent part-time, and this is someone who works essentially on a permanent basis, but at a part-time schedule. So most of you probably met Craig, who works in the park. He's been with us for years. He's not a full-time employee, but it's a permanent position, and he's here all year round. He takes care of things in the park, evenings and weekends throughout the wintertime, and then is mostly our weekend guy in the spring and summer months. Same thing, they are paid at their hourly rate and are paid for the hours that they work, and I'm not allowed to work more than 1,000 hours. And our employee who fits this category works somewhere between 9 and 950 hours a year typically. Permanent full-time position, non-exempt, is someone who works for the town on a full-time basis, which is an average of 40 hours a week, and they're paid on an hourly basis according to an annual salary. So you have your salary divided by hours in a work year, and they get paid an hourly wage. And these folks are eligible for all of the traditional benefits that the town provides to all full-time staff. Permanent full-time exempt positions are defined in the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is a federal law that dictates when you reach a certain threshold in your position, whether it's administrative authority, supervisory authority, and there's one other category, executive decision-making, something to that effect. You fall into this category of an exempt employee, which means you're exempt from the overtime standards typically apply to employees. These folks are full-time, work average 40 hours a week. These are department heads, for example, are folks that usually fit this category. And there's some new language in the plan, in this policy, about how exempt employees are treated in terms of compensation for working over 40 hours a week, and I'll get to that in a few moments. And then an intern, we've had interns in the past before, and we've treated them as a part-time employee, which is technically what they would fall under for human resources purposes. But we wanted to have a specific definition for it. So that's what we added there. Nothing terribly exciting about it. And then a probationary employee is someone who's appointed to a position, whether it's an hourly employee or department head or something like that, on a probationary period, for a probationary period, which for full-time would be 6 months. Any questions on any of those folks? Any of those employment types? Nothing too exciting. It's just defining what we already have. The next section that is new, it falls under the pay plan, which is on page 14. Specifically section 6, longevity pay. That is not something that we currently do. This is something that came out of the first pay study we did back in 2019 as an added benefit for employees. This is something that is pretty common across the state at all levels of government, and by levels of government I mean varying sizes of communities, from 1,500 and below, or 2,500 and below, up to the Charlottes and the Raleighs of the world. So we're basing this based off of years of service and a percent of salary. Some places do percent of salary, some people do a fixed amount depending upon your years of service, regardless of what your wage is. So the 0.5%, I've got a few examples. If you are earning $50,000 and you are getting a 0.5% bonus, that would be $250. If you're a 5-year employee and you are getting 1% of your salary at $50,000, you'd be getting a $500 one-time bonus. And that's what these would be one-time payments in the year. And I believe I have it written as they would be paid out on the anniversary date of someone's hiring. So if you're hired on April 15th of the next year, you'll get your annual longevity pay bonus. There's no right or wrong answer for this category in terms of what you offer for this benefit. You can not offer it. You can offer it with a fixed amount. You can do it a percentage. Some people do, it's a flat amount, and then you get, say, $50 extra a year based on how many years you've been there. So you get maybe $500 a year, and then the next year you get $550, and then you get $600. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And this is something new, so I wanted to bring it to your attention and see if you had any feedback on it, any initial thoughts.
All I have is a retired state employee that I don't believe the state any longer. The state offers longevity any longer, but it did during my employment. One difference was that it wasn't available to an employee that at least had 10 years of service. So sort of a carrot stuck out there, 10-year milestone. And then it was a percentage of your salary, and there were 5-year increments where once you hit certain anniversaries, 15, 20, 25, so it ticked up. I can't remember now, but I think at 25 year, it was more like 3%, it's about half the this council. Take it up, which I'm supportive of the concept. I guess just being familiar with it, I like the concept of longevity and something to strive for an employee that wants to at least 5 years, not something like 10, before they start pick up that percentage. Something along the line, somewhere along the line of what's already been proposed in this personnel policy. The one thing I do know, and I think everybody can attest to, since some people operate their own businesses too, but maintaining your staff is cost effective, and it's a small investment to keep good people on board. So that's why I support the concept. But that's one tweak. Varies from what's being proposed is when you want to let it kick in.
Gotcha.
And that's a great point. And policies vary from doing nothing for the first 3 years, so you get something in year 4, or you start in year 5. It's kind of all across the board.
Jeff, do you remember when it was awarded?
It's on the anniversary.
So it is on the anniversary day.
It'll be whatever started my Lloyd March.
And that's easier on,
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, is from a tracking standpoint.
We'll figure it out.
You figure it out.
As an employee, because it is subject to all the normal withholdings and taxes, that the number may sound good, but what you bring home is
Totally, yeah.
So don't freak out when you see percentages of 2, 3, 4% of my salary. If they're making $60,000, think, oh my God, I'll give $2,000, $3,000. Well, yes, the taxpayers are paying that, but half of it goes to FICA, Medicare, and taxes. So the employee will only realize $1,000, which for 10 years of service or something, that's better than nothing, but not getting rich. It's not.
Right.
Coming from my prior position, they did longevity pay, and at 10 years, I want to say it was $1,250, which is a healthy amount of money to count into your annual income that you know is coming. So I think it's a great benefit. I think there was some personalities on the board that, had some concerns with it. So we've heard from Jeff. Is there any other feedback on? I know this is the first time you're seeing it, but as far as starting it at year 3 or 5, or I don't think I want to wait till 10 years, but I think if you're willing to wait at least until 5 years, I think that's fair to people.
I think that's the definition of longevity.
Mhm.
More than one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm open to anything like that, because I can't keep help, so I know. Yeah. And I
Okay.
didn't mean that physically here.
no,
I mean-
I know.
Half a percent on a one-year employee just might be more work to keep track of than what it.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't do this in Brevard anymore, but I believe the first year it was like $50. I mean, it was almost not even worth the
So,
time to process it.
so we
Yeah.
mentioned that it's not happening no longer. So what route are they taking now? From a state level or Brevard level?
Brevard just changed the threshold so that for the first, I think 4 years, you don't get anything.
So
I think it kicks
longevity's
in
still
5.
there. It's
It's-
just, okay, change
Yeah.
the thresholds. Okay,
The state, I assume, was a budget thing. I don't know though.
Yeah, they just did away with it.
I got you.
My new hires that I brought on, as that was getting toward the end of my tenure, that there were a lot of benefits that weren't offered them. It's just
okay.
take time to stay purse strings.
Same for teachers. They
Yeah.
lost that benefit as well. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna leave this as is for now, since it's the first time you're seeing it. But the next time we talk about this, if you have any more specific direction, we can modify the table as the board sees fit. The next section to draw your attention to is section 7, just below the table, the annual pay increases. So this is basically how we've been doing it. This paragraph states that we will use the Consumer Price Index for calculating annual pay increases, which what we call cost of living adjustments, where we're trying to basically match inflation, so the value of the dollar is going up. We want to try to keep pay values equal to a dollar. But the one thing that we did add is the very last sentence on this. In addition, all full-time employees will be eligible for annual pay increases of 1.5%. And this came out of this year's pay study where we talked about doing away with merit increases. They would be an annual 1.5% increase in budget, or excuse me, in salary, and then merit pay would be one-time bonuses. And then later on in this section, or the next section, we talk a little bit about this. The next section, we talk about pay increases through certifications. So that's the new proposal, so that folks who are coming here and looking at it from a career point of view, they've got at least 1.5% to look forward to each year, and that wouldn't be performance based. That would just be an adjustment to everyone's salary. No, ma'am. This would be in addition to the COLA, in lieu of merit pay. Traditionally, when it was awarded, it was a base salary increase. So instead of being a salary increase, it would be a bonus equal to that percentage of whatever merit is. But the COLA will be a separate percentage, and that's tied to inflation. No, that would be a salary increase.
Okay.
So then will we be, if we went that route, will we be striking the merit pay increases out of this? So potential employee coming reading through this would think, well, I'm potentially gonna get that also? Or would the person that hired them said, well, that's in there in case they go back to it?
What was the first part
The
of your question?
the merit pay, so the 1.5 would pretty much do away with merit pay, correct?
In the form that it's been provided in the past, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, so that independent of your merit, your annual evaluation, there would be an automatic increase in your salary by 1.5%.
okay,
And then when merit pay is available through budgeting, then when those evaluations are completed, that whatever that percentage is, 2, 3, 4, 5%, would be awarded to the employee as a one-time bonus
okay.
instead of a base salary adjustment.
Ah, I got you.
So merit pay is still in there, it's just awarded differently.
So really, it's the 1.5% plus the consumer price index,
Mm-hmm.
and that's non-negotiable? Or is that subject to funding approval, the out?
It would be subject to approval. Yeah, it's all gonna be subject to funding approval in the budget each year.
But if I was accepting a job here, I would read that and real quickly go over the last 3 words.
Right.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Have you guys have the town done bonuses before?
We've done bonuses.
Yeah. Yeah, you've helped us. You've helped us with some.
Yeah, I'm saying before me.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Back in my day, we did.
Did they do anything?
I don't believe we've ever done a bonus before you were on the board. There was one brought forward after the last election.
I know back in the day, we done them at Christmas one time. I do remember that. Correct? Or am I wrong in thinking that?
I do not remember a Christmas bonus before the election that Mr. Cantrell came.
Even back during me and Wayne and Ed Glenn's time, you don't think? Okay, maybe it's just
Sorry.
me. Okay, no problem. I just seemed like we did one time.
I
okay.
don't recall it.
Okay, that's fair enough. You would know.
Merit pay was just a percentage throughout the year.
Mhm.
And you're suggesting turning it into a bonus in after budget or after fiscal new year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I, for one, like this approach. I've only been through one pay study as a council member, but rather than paying for a pay study, then have them show you that you're behind on every position and come up with a big lump sum of money to get everybody back in a fair market value. That 1.5% that's built in, sort of, according to the consultant I was here just a month or 2 ago, that 1.5% sort of keeps that from falling far behind. And then we still have this council or any council can respond to economic pressures and dial up, cost of living at 3%. Maybe one year it might be 9% the next year. It comes go crazy, but you still have that latitude to do it. Then lastly, I've never been a big fan of merit pay as just increasing somebody's salary, because basically everybody gets it. So it doesn't distinguish those that put in the extra effort, whereas the way it's written out now, somebody does go beyond what their normal responsibilities, or they go beyond what call of duty. It needs to be recognized financially, and that allows them to get that one-time merit pay for hopefully what was just a one-time demand on that one employee. But anyway, that's a long way of saying
Okay.
I like the way this is laid out.
Okay. Makes sense.
Pay a little bit to keep everybody on par with their counterparts, rather than having sticker shock every 3 to 5 years.
I think it does take out a little bit of the bumpiness, how it's written.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
Okay.
Okay.
Next section I wanted to go over with you is on the very next page, section 8. It's called certification pay increases. This is something that we've been working on for the last several months. And what this would be is an opportunity for people to secure additional certifications or trainings that would benefit the town and the employee as well. So I'm familiar with planning, so I'm going to use that as an example. The AICP certification that I carry is the peak of professional certifications as far as planning goes in the planning industry. So if someone does not have that when they're hired and they want to pursue that, it is a serious endeavor to secure that certification. There's a lot of studying and a significant test at the end of all that. They would be provided a pay increase of some percentage of the salary. And I don't have that table completely finished yet, but I have a draft of it that outlines several different planning certifications, several different ones from clerks, tax collectors, Parks and Recreation. Some of them would be actual base salary increases. So something like an AICP certification would be a base salary increase. But then there's also trainings that occur at the School of Government throughout the year that might be 3 or 4 days long. Not necessarily a certification at the end of it, but it's good knowledge for the employee to bring back to the town. So those might be like a one-time bonus. And we do pay for the classes, that's right. Yeah, so the town already pays for the class.
But you have to use your vacation time to go to them, or you get paid to go?
We get paid to go as well. So it's completely covered by the town right now. Yes, to answer your question.
You'd have to give me some kind of idea as to, and I know you will
Mhm.
on when you get it, but I would need to see what that employee was
Mhm.
getting for that specific thing.
Right.
Because me staying here as a board, it makes that person more eligible to go somewhere else.
Right.
It makes them more attractive to other municipalities,
Mhm.
but I've already had to pay for the training and their
Mhm.
time there. I'm just
Mhm.
stating where I think the citizens will be in Mills River with it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So, I've never had a problem paying for them to go, never
Mhm.
had a problem paying for them to be there.
Hmm.
My heartburn with it is, and I might be messing up, but, and help me because you're real good at this stuff. Does that, by giving them this,
Hmm.
as I'm saying this, does that make them getting paid for having it, won't, maybe possibly won't stay here more versus take that somewhere else? No. True. I just know in my world,
Hmm.
I probably train
Right.
70 builders, and
Mhm.
I no longer have 70 builders.
Right.
I've got my 5 startup guys again,
Hmm. Hmm.
I just, I may be thinking of it wrong. So
No,
that's
you're-
why I bring it out. So anybody feel free to coach me here. I don't
Okay.
want to mess this up either.
That's a perfectly reasonable response to this.
I can see me at the grocery store getting cornered and say,
Yeah.
gosh, you done this for 'em and this for 'em, and then now they're getting paid for it again.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I just need to know the answer to that.
Hmm.
Well, the flip side is, when we bring on people, the town staff, we want them to be career employees, that's our goal. Part of that is the ability to grow and develop professionally. And obviously, if they want to spend a career in an organization or in a municipality, they want to see the opportunities. So I think that's one thing that attracts and keeps employees, that say it is just a one-time certification, doesn't result in an increase in their base salary, but they get $500 for the effort to attain a certification. Well, that doesn't mean that's the only one they could get that benefits their job. Then they can say, well, actually next year there's gonna be an offering for another course that would really help me expand my knowledge, but it makes them more valuable to the town. But they see a way to continue to develop, even though they may not get promotions, because like we have a small staff, you can't really go.
So, yeah, you're
You can't go
limited.
from park maintenance right to town manager. There's just not a lot of vertical and some of the staffing. So in lieu of that, you say, well, we can make you or help you become, more developed professionally in that position. And yes, there's always a chance that if they're good employees, they're going to get picked up by somebody else. But to bring somebody in, once they stay a year or two and they say, well, I'm just not growing, I'm doing the same things every day, and there's really no chance for me to move up because there's just not a lot of positions in this town, then they go. But, if they feel like I'm developing professionally and I'm gaining more skills and abilities, and I think that's
I appreciate it. Acknowledge
So-
their growth,
well,
improving.
But,
certainly you're 100% right that you'll train people, somebody else to hire, and that's always going to happen. But I'm willing to take the risk
Okay.
to try to attract and keep those people.
Okay. But on some cases, if we bring an entry level person in, shouldn't we give them a time frame to establish certain goals, certifications or whatever? And make sure they've got them? If we're gonna award them for doing it.
That's part of their job requirement.
Right, yeah, I wouldn't ask them to do anything.
What's your? But I mean,
December 2025.
but at this point, Patty is pretty much trained and certified to be able to step into the role.
Yes.
So Patty's worked from part-time to, I mean, that is someone who is kind of nurtured and grown.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. My problem with it is I think if we're gonna award them for being able to do like Patty did and a bunch of others moving up and getting these certificates, is if we bring an entry level person in and they can't physically achieve that, then their feet need to be held to the fire on that too. Like if we brought Kevin Webb in and he couldn't have fulfilled and got where he's gotten already, he wouldn't be doing the town justice. But does that make sense? I think, I know it's not going to be your job to develop these levels, but I can control it on my end with pay. That's how I control it at in the careers that my people have. But here, when they come in, they know what they're going to make. I may be thinking about this wrong.
I think people are asking to take extra above and beyond, right? Like,
Okay.
Patty was never asked to step up, correct? No, I mean, it was offered, but.
Yeah.
And another way to look at it is outside of the classes required for her to get and maintain her certification. She also took a basic government finance course that helps her better understand everything going on around her.
No, it's fine. I'm saying you're like a success story.
Right, yes.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I just know with all the emails I get, I could be gone at least once a week somewhere taking one, and the town would probably pay for it. But I'm not going to spend taxpayers' money that way. In the 4 years I've been here, I could take enough classes. I could probably been summers down in Raleigh with all the certificates I could have took on town taxpayer money.
Right.
And I just don't want it to turn into that either.
Yeah.
With it,
No, please go ahead.
That's a good point. And I think to your first point about someone getting trained up and hitting the road, that is an issue. I mean, when I was a supervisor in Brevard, we had a couple folks who came there and got their certifications and hit the road. You could do, if you wanted to, sort of a clawback. If someone gets a certification of a certain magnitude and they're entitled to a 5% raise, then they have to stay with the town for at least another year or something like that. That's not uncommon for organizations that pay for continuing or for education. Like if you work somewhere and they do a tuition reimbursement for a bachelor's degree, once you finish it, you have to stay for a year or some other specified period of time. And if you don't, you have to pay back a certain amount that the town had already reimbursed you.
okay.
And we're trying to keep this certifications that are legitimate and meaningful. So
Okay.
to your point, there's a class, we could take classes every day, all day long.
Right.
At the School of Government, and each professional organization that we're all a part of has their own classes. And it wouldn't be for your run-of-the-mill, half a day training here and there. It would be for a program that is an established program, either at the school or some other agency. And you complete it. And it's also not just a blank check. So we haven't fully developed this process, and that would be something for your next manager to handle. But it would be, here's a list of things that we have identified, and Lake Lure has a process that we're borrowing for this, and they have a checklist that they have to review. Like, is it part of the job description? Is it required for the job description? Because if it's required, you don't necessarily want to pay people to get it. I mean, you might pay for them to get it, but they wouldn't get necessarily a salary increase because it's required for the job. Is it part of something in the HR manual that they're supposed to do in order to, is it increasing their safety or something like that. There's a series of tests, and I can't think of all of them right this moment. But I would imagine you'd have something like that established so that it's not just, I'm going to take this class, I'm going to get my $200 bonus. It's, here's the class, here's what I hope to gain from it, and these are the things that I'm going to learn, et cetera, et cetera. And then once it's done, you have to write some sort of summary of what you learned from that class.
Okay.
So it would be more than just checking off the classes that you can take on this list. And
Okay.
you'd also have to put some timelines on it because, going back to planning, because that's what I'm familiar with, there are a number of certifications that I secured early in my career. Some of them, it was 2 a year because you had to have 2 or 3 years of experience. And the classes just lined up perfectly for me. Where I could knock both of those out in a year. I think you'd want to put some boundaries on this that says you can secure 1 a year or 2 of this magnitude a year, because you don't want someone just focusing on that and they still have a
Right.
job.
I got a job to do. Yeah.
Right. And it also as a budgetary consideration, you don't want to you don't want someone to line up all their certification exams in a year and all of a sudden they get a 20% increase in that 1 year.
Okay.
So yeah. Or you say you can take it, but we're not going to give you the bonus this year, but you're welcome to take the course. Yeah.
Most any classes we take are subject to department head's approval or county approval. It's like you can't just say, oh, I want to do this, and decide to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, every year in the budget process, there's
You can all take the same class at the same time, everybody.
right.
Yeah.
But every year, as part of the budget process, people submit training requests,
Okay.
and that includes the class itself, the anticipated registration, because they're not always the registration costs aren't always available, but it's the course title, the registration costs, the travel mileage, the hotel stay, food costs, all that stuff is submitted to me as part of the budget process, and then when I present you the budget, it includes all those requests in there. So the training process in and of itself has sort of a pre-audit, if you will. It goes through that initial request through budget development, and then once you're in the budget year, you pretty much stick to that, unless a pandemic happens and you can't travel anywhere, then you have to readjust. But for example, there was a training that Orly was looking at, and years past it had been on the east coast of the state, so she had planned for that enough money for one person to go to the far end of the state, but it actually was moved to Asheville. So there's the budget that we've accounted for can actually pay for 2 people to go for that same training.
Okay. Awesome.
So this is the beginning of outline of this program that would award pay for certifications, but this isn't all of it. There's still
Okay.
a program that has to be developed behind it.
Did I catch that right? There's gonna be a list of classes that you would have to take for your job, which would not be paid, so that it would be clearly defined, like, some of this is a job requirement, only X, Y, and Z is not.
And a good way to handle that is with a work plan, that when the supervisor sits down with an employee for their annual, there's all sorts of components to it, the things that they need to be touching on. But I always had one for the folks I supervised, which was professional development, and it's basically a one-on-one with your direct supervisor to say, one, it's the employee's chance to say, well, I'd like to get these 3 things this coming year. The supervisor say, well, there's probably not enough budget for all these 3, or I don't think this one is really pertinent to what you do for the town. And so you don't want to try to put that stuff in the personnel manual. That's really getting down. It needs to be in the job description and the work plan that the employee and their supervisor address every year. And then that's when you have the one-on-one conversation where I'd say as an employee, I really want to get this certification, but it's going to take 4 classes, and I'm thinking maybe 2 this year, 2 next year. And the supervisor will, of course, have a better knowledge of how that works with the workload and funds or those types of things. So I think we're on the right path. But as the personnel manual goes, I think having this in there is important, but I don't think you want to get too specific, but simple fact that it's tailored to each employee.
Right.
Some have a lot of experience, some have no experience. Some might need a lot of training, some need little, but it's really, and what certifications they need, that's the conversation between that supervisor that knows the position and that employee. That by the same token, if the supervisor says, you can on, you've got a associate's or bachelor's degree, which is great, but you really need these 4 certifications, and I expect as your supervisor for you to attain these in this amount of time. And it's kind of outside the personnel manual, according to the supervisor, and they'll know what's expected of them, what the town's expectations are. So that's sort of the best way to handle all these things we're talking about. Is it's sort of outside this document, but back into the performance review and work plans and job descriptions.
Okay. We're good.
Cool. All right, next section is on the next page, Article 5, payroll policy. The first section on line 496, we just reworded that paragraph to make it more clear when people are paid. Didn't change how anything is done, just reworded it to make it more clear. Section 3 was reworked a little bit, and I'm going to draw your attention specifically to the text beginning on line 520. Currently, exempt employees don't earn any comp time. So if we're here one night for a council meeting that lasts till 9 o'clock, and everybody works full days every day, then you've got some employees working 43, maybe 45 hours in a week, and at the department head level, they don't earn any time for that throughout that they can utilize for time off other days. So this section actually provides for an accrual of comp time on an hour for hour basis. For hourly employees, it would be 1.5 hours per hour over 40 worked. For exempt employees, it would be just an hour for hour. And they could accrue up to 40 hours in a given year. It wouldn't roll over. Comp time for hourly employees does roll over. It'd be up to 40 hours. And it would not be something that's paid out when an employee leaves. So for example, hourly employee leaves today, they've got 8 hours of comp time. We pay that out just like we would vacation time. It's hours that they've earned. But this would be specifically for exempt employees to help give them recognize for those extra hours they're putting in and give them time that they can utilize for vacation or other purposes that they would prefer.
It doesn't say it explicitly, but what are you thinking? Because it says, they approve up to 40 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't carry it from one year to the next. But I presume that's a year from when you earn it. So say in the year of 2024, you earn 40 hours of comp time. Some of it was an early year, some later year. At January 1, 25, are they going to lose all that, or do they just lose the comp time that was accrued 12 months ago? But what was earned 6 months ago is still there.
It would zero out. So December 31st, if you've got 60 hours of comp time on January 1st, you'd have 0. That's only for the exempt employees. That carries over.
But does that have mass exit here the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year?
Well, we still have to, your new manager's still gonna have to manage time off.
I gotcha.
Just like anybody else
Yeah.
would. But
I don't, I'm a straight shooter. I run my own business. I'm never home, but I chose that. I feel like some of this is hazard of the game y'all play.
mm-hmm.
You knew they had evening meetings. You know this when you chose this career. So, as much as I work, I can't. Sometimes I envy you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all get to come here at 9. I had to be there at 6:30 this morning so I could be here at 9. I had to get all my people there at 6:30 this morning so I could be here at 9.
Right.
So.
Aren't you're pretty lenient on the, goes
Sure.
late, you can come late the next morning.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I thought that was a game we was kind of playing. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, and we're very flexible right now. If someone works, a lot earlier in the week and they take Friday afternoon off, that's their way of kind of balancing out their time with the town. But they don't, the difference is with this, they would actually have hours logged within the payroll system that they could use for additional time off or something like that. But I understand your point, Jen. I mean, that is part of the reality of getting to a certain point in your career is, and not just in government, but you get high enough in your career, you just have to work when there's work to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anybody got any questions on that? I spoke my piece about it. I just know when this personnel policy hits the road, I'll have to go to Ingalls and Etowah for a few weeks. Because everybody comes because they know I talk, so I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I do hear it's gonna have some, yeah, yeah, exactly.
But you're doing the future or next town manager a favor about formalizing, like Shay says, only because if it's being tracked.
Yeah, it helps everybody.
Because if it's just sort of, honor system, which, that works great on a small staff, things get bigger and get unwieldy, and the town manager's supposed to expect, well, they worked 3 nights last night, so they said they're gonna come in 11 and that's enough time.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
So like I said, it's an honor system, which, things going well, it works great, but once it gets so big, you just operate like that. It's hard.
If you're not tracking it, you don't know the exact, but is the 80 hours, is that, how many hours of overtime do you work a year?
I don't track my hours specifically. A lot of staff do.
Like ballpark, what is
Think
it?
about like all those night, all the park stuff, like all those movie nights in the park.
Mm-hmm. I think,
That's a lot, I'd say, for park people.
I think at least for
But we've
Nicole
done
and
her today that she's not here today because she thought she was working tomorrow.
Well, Michelle's out. Yeah, Michelle.
I'm talking about Michelle.
Michelle worked last Saturday and Sunday. She worked all day Saturday and Sunday last week.
I get the tracking thing. It's gonna help tremendously.
Yeah.
If that's the way we want to go with this.
I think it's between 40 and 60 hours to answer your question, Shay, in a given year. I know Nicole specifically works a lot because she lives close enough that she comes over a lot on the weekends to take care of things and mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they're tracking them or not?
They are. Mm-hmm. We're not logging. The difference is it's not being logged in the payroll system. So everyone does it to make sure that they're being treated fairly and the town's getting its time as well.
Gotcha.
So they all track on their timesheets if they worked 50 hours in a given week. That's on there, but as far as the payroll system is concerned, it has no meaning.
So you're my manager right now. How would this affect our budget as far as payroll goes?
They wouldn't change anything as far as payroll.
Zero.
For exempt employees, because they're not earning overtime, they're earning time.
So we're not gonna pay them at the end of the year for nothing. They just lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Or if they separate, they don't get paid.
Gotcha.
Can you not put in here, like I know it's greenhouse, if you work the weekend and your salary, you get a day off the next week, but you have to use it the next week or you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
So can there not be some black and white there that says, hey, you can't stick it to me between Christmas and New Year?
This is I had this as used within 30 days of accruing it.
Oh, okay.
Michael, you as a prime example. I mean, I hate to throw you on the bus, but you're here a lot of nights and you got a heavy workload. So I know you're here almost all the time. Is that 30-day window gonna work for you, or is it just something on a piece of paper I just know with your workload, and I know everybody's got it, but.
I think a month's practical.
Okay.
I think a week could be difficult because the next week you might get
slammed, yeah. Have a special use permit again. Okay. Gotcha.
You have to remember we're small and we have all your exempt employees take Friday off because they were here late Thursday night. Then you've got a skeleton crew.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of staff just use it for doctor's appointments.
Sure.
Sick time.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's a very good point. I mean, I think that the majority of what people probably would use it for because, I mean, Jeff can speak to this, but as a government employee, you accrue that sick time, and if you carry it through your career,
Leave a little early.
when you get to retirement, you can leave a little early, you can get credit for it. So, I mean, certainly with the staff you have now, I wouldn't foresee anyone of using this in any way, shape, or form. People are very good about it now. To Sue's point, there are some light council meetings, but we always make sure we have enough people in the office. Now that we have a larger staff, we almost always have at least 3 people in the building here, but we try to keep at least 2. It's very rare that we get down that low.
Right.
And typically it's when things like, funerals happen and people have to be at that for some other reasons.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, I understand that. I was, the front person at the window is part-time right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, see, I think if we could definitely eventually get that full-time to where we know that window is occupied.
Mm-hmm.
If I get one call, it's because when they come in that door, they can't visually see or find anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, hey, just holler back through there. Somebody will come up through there.
Mm-hmm.
We're limited staff. Somebody might be on break or bathroom.
That's usually what it is. Someone's in the bathroom.
Exactly.
Someone
So if we
walks in.
can, I think as a group here, if we can fulfill that, that'll be a great community asset.
That's on the budget discussion agenda this afternoon.
Okay, great. I'll let you, unless somebody else got something on this, we'll keep moving because it looks like we're going to struggle to get through this by break.
Okay, the next section is on page 19. It starts on line 641. It's called starting pay. This is not something we've done before, but this is something we discussed during the pay study. And I like this idea. So typically when we post a job ad, we post it, the starting pay is the minimum rate for that position, and we go up to the mid range of that position and budget for the higher end so that we when we find somebody who has no experience, well, they're going to come in at the bottom. If we find somebody with some experience, they're going to come in a little bit above that. But we don't have a hard formula for it. So taking the 1.5% per year of service that we utilize for the pay study, this formula would basically account for 5 years of qualifying experience. So let's say we'd get a new planning technician in a few years, and that person comes to the town with 5 years of experience. Rather than them starting at the minimum for that range, we would take 5 times 1.5% and then put them that much above the minimum range. So it's the same exact formula that we use to help recognize staff in the pay study, but this gives us a hard calculation for a starting salary. So I have the example I have in the policy is if your minimum pay for a position is $50,000, but someone was a planning technician and somewhere else for 4 years, we multiply that by 6%, so they would start at $53,000 for the year.
What happens if you can't fill the position and then you update your Indeed ad to the middle ground? Are you still going to do this? Or is it only if you're hired in at the low end?
This had only considered using the low end as a starting point, but market conditions change and we have to advertise higher than the midpoint, then that would be a budget discussion we'd have to have with the board first and then advertise accordingly, which we have had to do in the past, repost things for listing the higher salary.
I mean, I think this is a great idea. It gives whoever's in that seat the marketability to tell them what they're going to be looking at, right off the bat instead of guessing at it.
Any questions on that? The next page, page 20, section 2 on line 677. This is a new section that needs to be reworded. This is basically referring to, I'm sorry, this is the wrong section. You can ignore what I did there. Yeah, I highlighted the wrong section. I'm sorry about that. Let's see. All right, for the next section I want to review is on page 25. It is section 10, beginning on line 862. The Employee Assistance Program. The Employee Assistance Program is a service that the town offers right now to all employees and their dependents, and it's a fixed cost. It's $4,800 a year, I believe, and it is for counseling services. So if you are a full-time employee here, and let's say you have a death in the family and you want to talk to a therapist about it, you can call these folks up and you can go see them for up to 5 sessions per instance. So heaven forbid you have a death in the family, and then something else traumatic happens in your life within the same year, you can go back to them for 5 more sessions. And it doesn't cost the town any more money. It doesn't cost the employee any money. After those 5 sessions, typically what happens is those counselors will help place you with someone else in private practice, where it becomes your responsibility to pay the co-pays and all that kind of good stuff. This is something that we currently offer. We just don't have it formalized in the personnel policy. It's completely confidential. The only thing that the manager knows is if it's being utilized or not. They don't tell us who uses it, when they use it. We just get a quarterly notice that said you had this many employees use the service, something to that effect. The one really nice thing about this is it doesn't cost the town any more money for dependents to use this, not even legal dependents. If someone lives in your home that you're not related to and they're not your dependent, but they live in your home, they can also utilize this service. It currently doesn't cover town council or part-time employees. It could be, if we wanted to do that. It would be a few extra dollars a year. But initially we just covered full-time staff.
You paid the $4,800 a year regardless of who uses it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody could use it for $4,800 or nobody.
That's right.
It covers like substance abuse, addiction, and all that stuff. It's pretty wide range.
It's a great program. I mean, we had it in Brevard. I utilized it down there. It's a great system. And you get 5 sessions per incident. I mean, incident's a strong word, but per subject. Yeah. Whether it's a death or you're just struggling with anxiety or whatever the case may be. And it has been utilized since we've had it here.
Okay.
Under holidays, line 873, we added, this is actually on 876 is what I'm referring to specifically. In addition, all full-time employees are given 8 hours of a floating holiday. So there are, we typically have been following the state schedule for holidays. This 8 hours would be provided to employees for another holiday of their choosing. If they're, what's that? Could be Arbor Day. It could be religious observance. It could be really anything that doesn't fit within the traditional state holiday schedule, and it's equivalent to 1 day.
So, but they pick it individually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have to fall on a holiday?
Mashed potato day, and then on the 18th.
I don't think that we would get into that level of detail.
Do you have to use it every year?
No.
How much warning would the manager get?
What's that?
How much is it wrote in here? How long of warning the department head or manager would get before they would take this holiday? Is it in here?
No, it's not. It just says prior notification must be made from the employee supervisor.
I would probably give a certain amount of days ahead just so somebody don't call in and use it
Right.
real quick for something. If we're going to benefit them this way, I want it to be legit.
Does it roll? Or you have to use it?
No, it's just provided each year 1 time. So if you don't use it, you just start over with 8 hours the next year.
Can you choose a Canadian holiday?
I think you could.
If you're Canadian.
Maybe you have some Canadian ancestry.
I will use this on my birthday.
That is a common thing people use it for.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll add a notification period of some kind.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
This is the section I meant to discuss earlier, section 5, line 892 on the next page. Initially, we had looked at just providing 40 hours of additional personal time off for exempt employees so that you don't have to track if you work those extra 5 hours for that council meeting. On January 1st, you would be provided those 40 hours. But given the varying levels of workload with, for example, Parks Director is going to be out typically working more overtime hours than say our clerk would, because they're at so many events and things. So we thought it was a more fair approach to allow people to accrue it. So this just needs to be updated to reflect what was said earlier.
I think so. Yeah, I think that'll fix that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we do the other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this it comes out if they like the other one.
It just needs to be reworded. I changed one section. I forgot to change this section. The beginning on line 902, vacation leave accrual rate. Right now, we are awarded our vacation time on January 1st. So you get your full year worth of time. While that is beneficial to the employee for the first part of the year, it can be composed a little bit of a challenge scheduling wise. Because all of a sudden everyone has all this time, and then they start taking time off. It's just unusual that you're given all your time at one time. Typically, it's accrued per pay period, and so that's what we're suggesting in this. I did also change. Right now, in the personnel policy, from year 0 through 5, you get 80 hours. But so you have to wait 5 years before you begin accruing additional vacation time. This would actually start that at year 3. So your first 2 years, you would get 80 hours of vacation, which is equivalent to 10 days. And then in year 3, you would get 12 days. And that would be for year 3 and 4.
You let more than one person be on vacation at the same time?
Say again?
You let more than one person be on vacation at the same time?
Typically, yeah. The next section I'll draw your attention to is section 12 on page 28, line 964. The accrual rate for sick time, 80 hours is what it is right now. I'm suggesting it go to 96, which is again is 12 days over 10. And this isn't. We looked at the North Carolina League of Municipalities annual benefit survey, or biannual. They do it every 2 years, and this seemed to be the norm for organizations. So we were just trying to keep up with what the average seems to be. It's just 2 additional days.
Is there additional vacation days in the page before, or is that's a copy and paste? This is the only addition.
No, it was
I
still
don't know
modified.
exactly. The vacation chart is changed a little bit, but I don't have a comparison table to show you, but I can put that together. We did change it a little bit.
One I gave you was based on compare.
Right. The next section is on page 29, line 998. Mental health leave use as personal time. So this is a new type of leave. It's not new hours of leave, but right now, if you can use sick time for like appointments and meetings with people like attorneys and things of that nature. This would basically give you another category of leave to be used, which would be a mental health day. So time away from the office for town facilities for the purpose of prioritizing and tending to one's emotional and psychological well-being. And that's up to 5 days. So out of your sick time, you could use up to 5 days in a year for this category of leave.
But would this be, do you require a physician's note on sick days? How are y'all doing that?
I believe the policy is after 3 days, we require a sick note from the doctor, which is typically how we've been doing it. But this, I would suggest you not require something from an employee.
I'm just, yeah, I mean, I don't think any of our employees now would abuse this, but, and with the state, the way they, I don't know. I'd have to think about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure why it's in there. I'm thinking sick leave, and that's all the town needs to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because this doesn't afford them any more time. It's just
Right.
a subset of sick leave.
Mm-hmm.
They're sick, you know,
Right.
They have to tell the town for mental health reasons. So I don't understand it as it's presented.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it served the purpose.
My biggest fear would be that somebody would be out for 5 days with this.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't ask them why, but somebody needed them here
Mm-hmm.
for their service, and
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't answer the question.
Yeah.
I don't know how that worked.
Yeah, well, you don't know how public they were out on mental health.
No, exactly. So we're just setting
That's-
up
that's
for,
a fair
might be
point.
setting up for a
It's not
disaster.
the purpose.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I don't know.
yeah, we can bolster the sick leave manner of using and broaden it a little bit so
That might be the better way.
yeah. I think lunch is here. Is that what Kristen just brought in? Okay. So why don't we stop here, if that works for you guys, before we get into the next section. There's a few more pages to cover. We need to recess or anything, or
Because we're gonna take a lunch break for how long, an hour?
that's what the schedule is, yeah.
Could we recess for an hour by motion?
Motion to recess for lunch.
I got a motion. Blah, blah, blah. You're Randy.
I've been called worse.
Jeff, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none.
And if you wouldn't mind turning off your microphones, if yours are like mine, battery is dying. And it's already blinking. After we'll check.